Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. Before we get started, I would appreciate if you guys would check out my YouTube store, Lady T's Books and More. We have a variety of traditional candles, scented candles, wax melts, resin items. Now, if you guys don't like the way I read, you don't like the way I sound, you can always go to another channel. It's millions of YouTube channels out there. You do not have to be on my channel. I mean, don't get me wrong, I appreciate the support, but negative comments are not welcome. Back in '94, it was a big scandal about Denny, and it was one recently, maybe was it last year? In May 1994, a lawsuit was settled in court for the famous national food chain, Denny's. The settlement required the chain to dish out more than $54 million in lawsuits against them filed by thousands of black patrons who had been refused service or had been forced to wait longer or pay more for their food than white customers. Former Massachusetts Governor Patrick Duvall, who at the time was the head civil rights division of the Justice Department, said the lawsuit was the largest and broadest settlement under the federal public accommodation law. The laws were put in place more than 60 years ago to end segregation in eateries and other establishments that serve the public. The class action lawsuits were from Baltimore, San Jose, California, and a complaint out of Virginia. The actions were filed on behalf of black Denny's customers who claimed that the restaurant violated their civil rights by treating them blatantly rude and by purposely catering to whites. In one incident, a black federal judge from Texas and his wife, who had been traveling 18 hours, said they were forced to wait at a Denny's in Eureka, California for nearly an hour as white teenagers taunted them, referred to them as the N-word. In another case, 6 black Secret Service agents assigned to former President Clinton's detail were refused a table at the eatery in Annapolis, Maryland, while their white Secret Service colleagues were seated and served. For more than 3 years, Denny's, a subsidiary of Flagstar Companies of Spartanburg, South Carolina, was a topic of growing controversy that the establishments segregated blacks or required them to prepay or make various payments, while white patrons weren't forced to do any of this. Of course, the company denied that it had a policy of discrimination. Of course they would. But it had promised to take immediate steps to prevent any more shady treatment toward their black customers. It was speculated that the publicity from the lawsuits had begun to discourage blacks, who during the mid-90s made up 10% of the famous restaurant chain's customers, from eating at the 1,500 Denny's locations. The lawsuits came to a total of 4,300 claims as part of the class action suit. The settlement in '94 depended on how many people came forward within the following months. Additionally, the corporation agreed to hire Sharon Liebeck Hartman, an LA attorney with a history in civil rights, to enforce the consent decree and to monitor any civil rights issue that may occur. The lawsuit also included to start a program in which black folks posing as customers would investigate whether the restaurants were displaying biased behavior. The May 1994 settlement had been under Title II of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which is also known as the Public Accommodations Act. The law was often used in the 60s and 70s to dissolve any segregated issues. The year before, in '93, another restaurant chain, Shoney's, agreed to pay $105 million to thousands of black employees and job applicants to settle a discrimination case. Lawyers for some of the black customers said that they had discovered evidence that thousands of cases were not random but reflected to a pervasive attitude of discrimination that permitted Denny's management. Allegedly, during the pre-trial fact-finding, a former manager had testified about training sessions in which managers were instructed how to deal with what they considered too many black people in the establishment at the same time. The company's code for such incident was dubbed a blackout. The chairman and CEO of Flagstar denied any such policy discriminate against blacks. The settlements were an admission that the chain had a discriminatory policy against blacks. During a news conference, he portrayed the bias incidents as random and not part of a corporate strategy, while admitting that not all customers will be satisfied with their services or orders. So of course, they hired a black executive to run their human resources department. They allegedly have taken significant steps to prevent discrimination at their locations. But the picture the prosecutor portrayed in court says that contrary by some customers who suggested that the restaurants have been plagued with racial problems. One incident happened when a 17-year-old in 1991 walked into a Denny's in San Jose with 17 other teenagers after attending a college meeting sponsored by the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, aka the NAACP. The restaurant staff demanded the black patrons make a cover charge in addition to paying first for their meals, although several white classmates didn't endure this behavior. The then 17-year-old was very upset, being that her parents, who were from the South, had faced racism. They had promised her she wouldn't face the same thing. Some incidents occurred despite the company was trying to resolve accusations of racism. In April 93, Denny's had already agreed, as part of a consent decree, to settle a federal suit in California to stop their discrimination policies. But the same day the decree was entered, that's when the 6 Fed agents in Baltimore were refused service. This is what prompted the California case to be reopened. The customers would receive approximately $46 million, and the lawyers would share another $8.7 million. Any surplus money that was left over were to be donated to United Negro College Fund and to other nonprofit organizations dedicated to furthering civil rights. The lawsuits had no major financial impact on Denny's revenues of $1.53 billion in the year 93, and their parent company Flagstar owns and operated more than 500 Hardee's franchises, as well as the El Pollo Loco and Quincy's Family Steakhouse chains. These latter restaurants must be in the West Coast, because I've never heard of them. It's been 31 years since Denny's reached an agreement with the NAACP to spend $1 billion in employment and contracts for minorities over the next 7 years. But just recently, the chain was accused of being rude and mistreating their black customers. Y'all remember, I think last year, when the 2 black truck drivers were denied service and asked to leave a Denny's restaurant and the cops were called? The truck drivers just wanted to sit down and eat a meal, and the waitress was very rude, and someone overheard told her to call the police. That story went viral, as to where 31 years ago, we didn't have the internet. So a lot of people weren't aware of this Denny's racist scandal. Okay, y'all, thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Oh, and hit that like button, please.